Hello and welcome to the maiden podcast of Nerdout Weekends. We have a bunch of topics to talk to you about today, and basically this is just going to be an ongoing show where we talk about all things nerdy, techie, you name it. So for the privacy of ourselves and my co-hosts, we'll be using aliases for the time being anyways. So but you can find me online by my alias and my socials and things like that, which we'll link in the descriptions once this video is completed and posted. So I am your host, Prince Diamond, followed by my co-host,
X.
And my other co-host.
Can I be Snake Eyes?
If you want. Do you have anywhere to...
You know what? You usually don't call me that, so your tongue's probably going to slip anyway, and it's okay.
No, my tongue doesn't usually slip.
Anyways, so why do we call this the Maiden Podcast?
It's our maiden journey into the world of podcasting.
I see.
Something we've never done before.
Cherry is popped.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing this forever, right?
We have. Actually, we've been talking about doing this for a couple of years, and we always struggle. Life gets busy. Time is always a thing. There's a lot of prep work that goes into this, especially when you're producing it yourself. So I think it's fun that we finally got the chance to sit down and...
yeah, it's great to talk to you both because, we only see each other so often, especially me because I'm a little bit far out. So...
Yeah, well, that might change in the future. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, we try to get up here and visit Snake Eyes at least once every couple of months or so. And
Axe is chuckling right now because he loves my name.
Absolutely. Who doesn't love G.I. Joe?
Reminds me of an old meme I used to see on the internet. So they had those public service announcements with a bunch of 90s cartoons. And one of them was the old, I'm not sure if you remember this or not, but they had the Help Computer. Do you guys remember that at all?
I do.
Yeah.
Back at the old art house that we used to hang out in.
Yes. Yeah, we did. Yeah, that's where I first learned of it too. So, fun times back then. Plenty of memes from 90s television.
And I think it's appropriate we mention G.I. Joe because the first series was actually animated by a Japanese studio.
Right. Yep.
And
same one for Transformers.
Mm-hmm. Transformers, G.I. Joe, and believe it or not, the real Ghostbusters was also animated by a Japanese studio. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
It didn't have that look to it.
It did not. No, the styling was actually very different, but this was something I learned not but a couple of years ago with myself being a hardcore Ghostbusters fan. Mm-hmm. So I really started to dig into it, and when they re-released the real Ghostbusters on Netflix, of course I had to start binging that right away, so brought back some old childhood memories.
Nostalgia.
Yes. I remember I was going to a daycare growing up, and we had to schedule my naps around Ghostbusters. So Winnie the Pooh came on before the real Ghostbusters, and so my nap would be during the duration of Winnie the Pooh because I didn't necessarily care about that as much.
He's all right.
So you're carried that show.
Yeah, but the real Ghostbusters came on. I had to be awake to watch that, or else I was not a happy kid growing up.
Yeah, and it's appropriate that we mention all these shows because we're talking about anime, right, Axe?
Yeah, actually any anime from different eras, but being someone of our age range, we are big 80s, 90s anime fans. So
yeah, absolutely. So speaking from that era, and I know a lot of us have seen a lot of anime, which we consider the classics, right? And anime goes way back into early times of TV and entertainment and things like that. Mm-hmm. Some of the early ones that were brought to the U.S. would be the likes of Speed Racer, Gigantor, Astro Boy, things like that. And the American public has become sort of familiar with those. Some people didn't even realize that Speed Racer was anime for a long time. I know I've had arguments with people until I had to show them the original, which years ago was difficult to find. You couldn't find anything in the original Japanese language. You had to scour sketchy websites sometimes.
When I got into anime, it wasn't even called anime, right? Remember the term they used to use? They call it Japanimation.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. I still have magazines from Japanimation.com where you could order merch and buy videos and stuff like that.
Actually, to piggyback on what you were saying about people not knowing what actually anime was, my dad even, who, when I was growing up and first got into it, would make comments like, you watching anime again, find something better to do. I'm like, well, Speed Racer you used to watch when you were a kid. That's anime. He's like, no, it's not. To this day, he still fights me about it 30 years later. So, it's definitely been ingratiated in the culture for a lot longer than people realize. So.
You need to find him the theme song that says Mahagogo instead of Go Speed Racer, right? Exactly. One of my favorites from like the 80s/90s genre is probably going to be Kimagure Orange Road, which is a romantic comedy love triangle with some fantasy elements to it. And the funny thing on how I discovered that anime was when I was working at the university I attended. In their IT department, we're doing stuff kind of on the back end, not really out with customers all the time. And I was listening to internet radio stations, and we tried to find ones. The only Japanese music I could really find at the time was ones from anime. So they played music from there, and I would try and capture the names of the songs. And actually, it was some of that 80s style music. And that's how I discovered a lot of the anime that I like today was the music. So the music helped me find that anime, and it turned out to be a really good anime.
And what year was this again?
That I discovered?
Yes.
It was like 2002, 2003. So,
okay. So like college years.
Right? College years, yeah.
Wow, I thought it would have been much earlier than that.
Well, that was just Kimagure Orange Road from that era that I liked.
Okay.
There's later ones that are more my favorites. X, for example, came out. The movie actually came out in like 1996 originally, but then they had sort of a revamp of it in 1999 where X Japan made this like elaborate music video collaboration with the movie. So that was interesting. And then they released a TV series in 2003, I believe. So right sort of the second semester of my freshman year of college. And I went to, here's an oldie but a goodie, I went to Suncoast Video and bought the box set and every individual DVD for $25 a pop with only 3 episodes per disc. You can do the math, but it's the most expensive anime investment I've ever made.
Yeah, I remember Suncoast Video. Everything there was like full MSRP.
Right.
Always.
Yeah. It was... I always loved going inside of it. I would never buy anything from there.
Yeah, but
because they had a lot of pop culture items, right? They had the Japanese pixie sticks that you would eat. What are they called?
Well, the biscuits.
Pockies?
Yeah, the biscuits dipped in chocolate. Yeah, they had Pocky, they had some figurines, they had other...
Manga, too. A little bit of that.
They had some manga, yeah. So, it's just... but it was always fun to go there. We would take the bus from the university to the mall just so we could go to Suncoast Video and like spend hours in there. The other place we would go would be Hot Topic because they had the anime Hawaiian shirts. If you remember that.
Yep. Yeah, I absolutely do. Even my wallet my wife got me was a Zelda wallet from Twilight Princess, and everyone's like, "Hey, I recognize that." And I'm like, "Yep, got it from Hot Topic." So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, you can't mention anime and getting into it without mentioning Cartoon Network's Toonami.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I know you're not a big English dub fan, but I think a lot of people got into anime through that segment right there.
We all had to kind of start somewhere.
Right.
Actually, my first exposure to anime was at Boy Scout camp. And everybody's going to laugh when they hear this because it's such an iconic, well-known, gateway anime. But it was actually Dragon Ball Z, but it was on VHS, but it was in Japanese.
Okay.
This was my first major real exposure to it. I think I had watched Sailor Moon as a kid, but I didn't really know what it was, and it didn't interest me at the time. But by the time I was like 13, 14 years old, saw Dragon Ball Z episodes that had not been released in the US because the production companies were, they didn't really care to release it at the same time. That was sort of my first exposure to like real anime and hearing it in Japanese, and that's sort of where my love for Japanese language, culture, music just sort of blossomed from there.
Absolutely. I mean, same for me, honestly. I remember I was like 12 or 13. We had a huge party with all my classmates. One of my classmates is actually as big a fan as I was. He brought over Dragon Ball Z Movie 12, The Rebirth of Fusion, on a VHS over, uncut, subtitled. I had never seen an actual uncut, raw Japanese version before. I always saw the edited version on Cartoon Network, and I already had my love for it there. So he plays that for me. We see how it really is. We spend the whole night laughing. I'm like, oh my god, this is even better than I thought it was. So around that time was when I really started searching around for, the uncut versions, the sub versions, the non-dubbed versions, and that's when, I'm not going to say my hate, but my preference changed to, Japanese language itself, and then, starting to learn the language, getting more into the culture. So, yeah, it's going to be a good year.
Fun stuff. So, Snake Eyes, when was your first introduction to anime, and or what is your favorite anime from like the early 80s and 90s sort of era?
Okay, yeah, so I had to look this up because I was very little when I got into anime, and my whole family's Asian. I guess they were more exposed to it, and my first one was actually a Studio Ghibli film called Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind. The movie was made in 1984. And I was really little when I saw it, so I might have seen it when I was pretty much new. And yeah, we would copy all these VHS tapes, which were probably bootlegs, right?
Yes, reminds me of the days of like VCDs and like the cheap DVD sets that had like nice like box art on, but like you had like 3 or 4 discs, and somehow they crammed all 26 episodes into that 3 or 4 disc set, and you're like, man, this is great.
Yeah, well, the packaging wasn't great for the VHSs. They were all just written with Sharpie markers, right? And we would have piles of them, and I would just watch videos all day as a kid because that's what kids do, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Nausicaa Valley of the Wind was actually very violent.
Oh.
There was a scene at the end where she gets shot and all this blood comes out.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and my kids let me see all that stuff because I don't know.
That's not a spoiler for the plot because we don't do spoilers here, right?
Just know she gets shot and there's a lot of blood.
Hey,
no spoilers there.
That's sort of par for the course for anime.
Yeah, they definitely embellish a bit. It's kind of always, you're like, well, I didn't realize there was that much blood flowing through the human neck.
But yeah, I didn't know it was anime, so to speak. I saw a lot of things. I didn't categorize it in that way,
I don't think any of us did when we were kids. I think it's just something that we grew up and sort of were drawn to because it felt different than what the general populace was watching or what average American TV was at the time. It was new and the style was different, so I think we just kind of got drawn to it. So
yeah, so for me, I think I have to go back to the Cartoon Network era. Mm-hmm. That's when I started really recognizing it for what it is, and of course you can't go wrong with Dragon Ball Z. It's one of the all-time favorites.
Yeah, I remember
I love the build-up of Gohan and Piccolo training for the incoming Saiyan invasion. It's like they built it up so much, right, that you wanted to see what was going to happen. And when Vegeta and Nappa finally arrives to planet Earth, they paid off in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
At least to hold them off for a while. Yeah. They had sort of that all-star lineup back in the day. We'd get home from school, and I was lucky that I got to stay home by myself. Both my parents worked full-time jobs. It took them to like 5-6 o'clock at night. So I would start. I'd catch Toonami right when I got home at 3 o'clock, and we'd have Dragon Ball Z, Gundam Wing. Tenchi Muyo, a lot of those, and they kind of rotated the lineup a bit.
Yeah.
You ended up with some like Big O,
Just
and
made for
Outlaw
Cartoon
Star
Network,
and
yeah.
stuff like that. A lot of these, really meant for Cartoon Network, and then that sort of overflowed into Adult Swim, where they started playing the same anime, but then they started doing like the uncut version. So if there was blood or if there was violence or nudity, things like that, it wasn't censored out for the primetime afternoon school children sort of day, which was interesting. So
And Cartoon Network introduced us to an all-time favorite for a lot of people, Cowboy Bebop.
Absolutely.
Right? Yep. I think it was like one of the most rewatched shows ever, because I don't know. I think even though it has 26 episodes, people keep rewatching it years and years later.
Absolutely.
I've definitely rewatched it multiple times. The first time, was dubbed because that's what was available at the time. Importing was not a big thing, and it was super expensive. We didn't have the internet back then like we do today. You were lucky if you turned your computer on and went and brewed a cup of coffee that your computer was online. Let alone if you were sitting there and you had dial-up or even worse yet, AOL, and you're trying to dial in
CompuServe.
Yeah, any of those.
Blue light.
Yeah,
Net Zero.
And it would sound like you were online, and then somebody pick up the phone to make a call and kick you off, and you had to do it all over again. You're cursing and swearing.
Absolutely.
So this is the lengths Prince Diamond goes to because he really doesn't want to listen to the English dub. And a lot of people love the Cowboy Bebop English dub. I think one of your friends, I guess we'll call him Iceman, I think he mentioned that even the Japanese director of Cowboy Bebop said that the English dub was better.
I get that a lot, and I can appreciate it, but and this is my opinion and my opinion alone. Everybody's entitled, but personally, I feel like at least for anime, and the more I watch, even newer stuff, I look at the voice acting, and I just feel like Japanese is a way more expressive language than English. As are a lot of foreign languages. I've taken Spanish, I've taken German, and they just feel a little bit more expressive than what we can do with English. And so I do struggle with dubs, and I know sometimes that's the way it is, but it's not just anime. I mean, since the inception of Netflix as a streaming service and things like that, I have watched a ton of foreign films, and I have grown accustomed to reading subtitles and things like that. I don't mind, but I'd rather hear it in the native language because part of my background also being a musician, the way things sound is very important to me, which is probably why music has drawn me to very specific anime series, because the music had a sound that my ears really liked. So that's just, again, my personal opinion. You guys can hash it out on whatever you guys prefer.
I get it. Honestly, I definitely prefer, the native language as opposed to dub. I mean, I guess what traumatized me is some of the foreign films as well, a big Bruce Lee fan, and some of the movies I've seen with some of the dubbing when the mouse moving at 20 miles an hour and I see two words come out, I'm like, that doesn't really vibe really well for me. So, but
we were talking about this last night where we're trying to get into some Bruce Lee movies and seeing the originals, and you mentioned, Prince, that it's pretty much impossible to see the Hong Kong originals.
Yeah, I don't even know if they were even ever produced. The voices were actually spoken in Cantonese because Bruce Lee, as we know, grew up in he grew up here in the U.S. for a little bit. He moved here with his uncle in L.A. for a while, but he also grew up in Hong Kong and became a huge film star in Hong Kong before he came to the U.S. Even Bruce Lee's father was an actor, so they speak Cantonese there. Anybody out there in the world can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct on that. And you can see that they're speaking Cantonese or Chinese, whatever dialect it is, in the film, and they have dubbed it with English actors. And
the Godzilla effect.
I mean,
or Gojira if you prefer.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean,
it's a really good metal band, actually.
It is. Yeah. But you can't find the original voiced actors' films out there that I'm aware of. It's probably locked away in some, Hong Kong vault that we will never gain access to. The only things that have been available, even in the vast corners of the internet that I've been able to find, even are all dubbed with American voices.
Now that you mentioned that, I don't know if you guys watched the Digital Foundry podcast. There's a guy named Audie Surley, and he's actually done work to restore all these old Hong Kong films, because a lot of the films are kind of scattered all across the country, and they're not actually kept in well condition.
Yeah.
So he spent a lot of money for this company to just find these films and restore it. Sometimes these films are like stuck in like a garage, someone's garage or something.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
I mean, that's how a lot of films got started, was in people's garages, right? Low budget, films.
And microphone hitting you in the head.
Notice I said film. Film does not have audio, right?
Right.
So they have to find the tape as well, and those can get separated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a tragedy that way.
Not only that, especially on the audio side, like film for like video and still picture, it does have kind of an expiration, but it does last longer than audio, which is usually on some type of magnetic tape, which does deteriorate rapidly over time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I still have some audio cassettes floating around from like the 90s and stuff.
Oh, we should bring it over and see how well they held up.
Yeah, but I mean, definitely going to not have, tip-top audio quality, or it's going to stretch because it hasn't been touched, or even get brittle and break, over time, just because of whatever conditions.
Yeah.
That's
the next time you play that thing, it could be the last.
Yep.
That's what makes it so endearing, though. You hear all the skips in and out of the audio, just because, hey, this is back in the day.
Maybe we should digitize your cassettes just for the sake of it.
I started that project a long time ago, and I had a really good stereo system that I was doing that with. It had nice auxiliary out, which would go into my Audacity on my computer. I went through a fire a number of years ago, and the cleaning company gave me the speaker parts back, never gave me the main unit back, which had like the dual cassettes. It had really excellent EQ for bass. The fact that it had aux in and aux out, and I could hook like my PC up to it as like a nice speaker system. So now I just have these speakers. I still have the speakers. They're in my storage unit that have excellent bass and sound quality, but yeah, I don't have the main unit anymore, so I'm kind of SOL in that department, unfortunately.
Yeah. Excuse me.
So, see here. What would you classify as like, from when we got introduced to it to now as like a groundbreaking anime?
Well,
we were just mentioning it, Cowboy Bebop,
absolutely.
for sure.
Yep.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but anytime I just stumble upon it, I just gotta watch the episode to the end.
I also like to throw in Ghost in the Shell. Actually, Standalone Complex, and actually the movies from back in the early 90s.
All right.
Even going into Innocence, I love all those. I can watch Innocence anytime. For like 2001 era, the animation was fantastic. The storyline's really engaging.
What do you think of all the times they remade Ghost in the Shell?
Right.
Do you like that Star Wars approach to it?
Yeah. So was it 2045 SAC they have going now? It's different, and now they've done like the CGI, which I'm still trying to get used to. I'm more appreciative of the original animation.
Yeah. At least unlike Star Wars, they keep the old ones so you can rewatch.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'll have to jump in here and say that, and it's like the staple classic of anime. If you're getting into it or something like that, as far as groundbreaking, but also like a classic known by everyone is going to be Akira, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was one that really sort of changed people's perspective on animated film, to think that it could be that violent or that detailed.
Exactly.
Some people said there was a single frame of animation for every second. No, what did they say? They call it 1s, 2s, and 4s, right? So every second would have 24 frames of animation.
Okay.
Yes.
Or sometimes 12. That has been disproven since, but you could see how fluid that animation was.
Oh yeah.
It was exceptional for its time coming out in the
It was
80s.
40 years ago.
Yeah, it's super expensive.
Yeah.
Imagine
Yes.
drawing 24. Well, they didn't really do it, but imagine drawing 24 frames of animation every second of that movie.
And that movie was all but 2 hours long, right? I mean,
Right.
for an animated film, it was long. Anybody who's interested, I highly recommend going out and watching the movie, but also reading the manga.
Mm-hmm.
The movie doesn't even really cover a third or even a quarter or even a sixth of what is in the manga. It really covers a small subsection of the whole story. I keep on going to various, Japanese bookstores or comic book stores and things like that, and I will see these box sets of Akira, and I really just want to like blow that $200 to just own it. But every time I'm there, I just can't justify, walking home with it, or I have to take a plane, or
Right, I actually stopped the axe from buying the set in a New York bookstore just because I don't. They say that friends tend to spend a lot more money when they're around other friends, and I don't want that happening.
Well, Snake Eyes saved me from having my wife wring my neck when I got home. Let's put it to you that way. So.
Yeah, and here I am sitting here encouraging him because I'm the enabler friend. I just want my friends to be happy. Is that such a bad thing?
So you two act with my conscience whenever I'm about to make a big spending on something.
Well, you have like the angel side, which would be Snake Eyes, and then you have the devil side, which is me, and you have to make the decision as to which voice is louder in your head.
Man,
I wonder if they digitized the Akira manga.
I'm pretty sure they did somewhere.
You know what? I don't think they did because I'm looking at Amazon right now.
Maybe not officially.
sure, I understand.
I would prefer the official way because if you ever use those little comic book applications, you can just swipe panel by panel and zoom. It would just automatically go into the text bubbles. It's much more pleasant.
Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting. So was that like what would be like with Comixology?
yes.
Okay.
I never got to actually download anything with Comixology. I had the app for years. It might still even be on my phone, but I never got the
You
chance.
could totally get into it because you have Amazon Prime, right? And they give out free comics that you can try out.
I think I captured some of no, that was from the Apple bookstore. I think I got some Sonic the Hedgehog or Knuckles or something like that. So,
but yeah, free comic books on Amazon Prime if you have it.
yeah, not sponsored, by the way. We've got to throw that disclaimer in there. Not sponsored. We have no sponsors currently. We are just freely speaking about all the things that we are passionate, that we love. So
Yeah, so screw Amazon.
now we're never going to get a brand deal if we talk like that. So might want to
Call me.
Yeah, call me maybe. We'd love to.
Yeah, so you can
talk for
experience it digitally via Comixology, but hardcover is $128. I believe the bookstore was about $200, right?
Usually about 200, but it did come in this like nice box, and just like the same thing I did with X. Like I'm willing to make that investment. It just takes me a really long time to justify. Like, hey, do I need this right now? Do I have that leisurely spending money to do this?
I don't
right
think
now?
you have the space, to be frank.
Currently, no.
No, I don't.
My fiance and I were looking to move into a new place and have sort of our own space. We're in a tiny apartment, and I had a roommate prior, and so he's still there with us. So yeah, we're definitely trying to adjust our living situation, but once we have the space, that might be, once I kind of replenish some of my funds a little bit, I think that might be the first thing on my list. We'll have to take a trip to like New York or Philly or something. And
let's wait until the school year starts back up so my kids, I can just put this stuff in her room.
Good idea.
Yeah, but when they come home from school and they see it there, they're going to think you gifted it to them. And then they're going to be like, oh, thanks, Daddy.
No, not at all. We will establish that.
They're not anime fans?
No, they are.
They are, but they do the dub. I failed them. They watch dub and prefer dub, and I just shake my head.
Was it you? Or
Okay, it's my wife's fault.
Okay, I just want to make sure we were clear on that.
I couldn't turn it around. I tried.
You gotta get them early.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Got to be quicker than that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. State Farm.
Oh man. So, What else we got going on here? I think this was a pretty good discussion that we had today.
Yeah.
I think that as this goes on, depending upon what we see, popularity wise and interactions from community, we'll try and get these out. You should be able to find us on YouTube at Nerdout Weekends, Twitch, Nerdout Weekends. We also have a Twitter account, but that's in a state of limbo right now. So it's called X. But good luck with that in Japan. I think Yoshiki is coming after you, Elon.
Exactly.
So good luck with that. So yeah, you can find us there to see our content, interact in the comment sections of the videos that we post. And any parting words from either of my co-hosts here?
Johnny.
Thank you for listening. Take care.
And we'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yay.